If I wanted to modify the content of a table, then I have to go with the update. That is the difference between alter and update. If I wanted to remove the table overall from the database management system, then we have to use this drop statement. If I consider a whole row value, it will be different from one row to another row. But if I wanted to have a distinct name from this student name, then I can have this distinct keyword. Hello everybody, a warm welcome to one and all. I welcome you all back to the session 2 on chapter 14, that is SQL commands. I am Rohini TS, lecturer, Department of Computer Science, Vidhyaashram Pre-University College, Temple of Excellence, Mysuru. In the previous session of this chapter, we have discussed regarding the introduction part of the SQL. That means, what do you mean by SQL? That is structured query language. What is the need of having this SQL commands in our programming language? That means we are going to use this SQL as a mother tongue for the database management system. If I wanted to communicate with the DBMS, then the structured query language is important. And also I have discussed regarding the SQL architecture. Then we have discussed regarding SQL commands. Under that we have a DML commands, we have a DDL commands, and also we have a TCL command, that is data manipulation language and data definition language and transaction control language. And also we have discussed regarding the data types that we are going to use in SQL and then operators in SQL. And also we have learned what do you mean by SQL expression and what are the types of expression that we have in a SQL. Along with that, I have discussed regarding the constraint, that is what not null constraint, primary key constraint, and we have learned regarding some of the constraint. That means the set of the rules and regulation, what and all we have to follow when we are writing the commands in order to access the content of a database management system. This is what we have learned in the session 1. So in our today's session, we will be learning regarding till now we have learned regarding what theoretical aspect of this SQL. That means what do you mean by command, how we are going to use that. So now we got to know that what is table, what table consists of. So if I just ask what do you mean by table, that is what just a combination of rows and columns. So that columns are nothing but fields and rows are nothing but records. So in order to fetch the content of a rows, columns, or if I wanted to create a table, if I wanted to insert some content, if I wanted to delete the content, if I wanted to modify the content of a table, then it is necessary to look over the SQL commands. That is what we will be learning in our today's session. So it's regarding creating of a table. Then after the creation, how we are going to do the alteration. That means if I wanted to modify the content, if I don't want it, I wanted to drop that particular table. And also we will be learning regarding insertion, select, where clause, and also we will be learning regarding this AND operator along with the OR operator, and then we'll look over update command and then delete command, and I will be discussing regarding order by clause, then group by, then we are going to learn regarding distinct, then null, not null. So these will be the content of my today's session. So we'll get into the today's session, that is regarding creating of a table statement. So as you all know that tables, so what do you mean by that? It is just a combination of a rows and columns. Rows are nothing but records and columns are nothing but fields. That specifies the attribute. So that record specifies the data and information that what you wanted to store in a table. For example, if I wanted to have a student table, how I am going to create that? So physically we are going to call this as a student table, and consider I wanted to have a student ID and I wanted to have a student name and I wanted to mention the date of birth of a student. Okay, so these are my columns in my student table. What I am saying now, student is a table name and I have 3 columns that is represents the attributes of this table, that includes student ID, name, as well as the date of birth. So now I wanted to have 3 rows for this. That means I wanted to have 3 records for this student. This is what physical structure of a table. But what if I wanted to give this as a command to the database management system? What if I wanted to create one table in the database management system? We'll see now. So for that we are going to have this create command. Then how we are going to create? First we have to learn its syntax. That means we have to understand what are the rules and regulations that we have to follow when I wanted to create a table. Okay, what is the first command? Here create is a keyword. Okay, then I have to what I wanted to create. What is this? This is table. I wanted to create a table, so that you have to mention a table. And I have to give a name for a table. Why we all have a name? That means in order to uniquely identify our identity, we all have name. In the same way, if I wanted to give a name for a table, it must be unique in nature. I can't have a same table name twice in a database management system. As we all discussed regarding the features of a database, it will going to reduce the redundancy. So for that purpose, we have to have a unique name for each table in a database. So that create table, and I have to give a name for table name. Then open a parenthesis. Within that, what I have a column 1. How many columns I can create for a single table, ma'am? So you can create any number of column. Then you have to specify its data type. So why I wanted to specify data type? So if you just consider an example of this student ID. So in what kind I wanted to insert a value for the student ID, whether it wanted to be like a collection of characters or numbers, or I just wanted to have only numbers, or I wanted to have only character, that specify the type of data that we are inserting with respect to that particular column. So that purpose, we have to specify the data type of a column. So, and I can have and then don't forget to put this comma, because I wanted to differentiate one column from another column. And also we have a column 2 data type. I can have n number of column. So I need to specify its data type, then comma. After that, if I wanted to have any constraint, already we have discussed regarding the constraint. That is what set of rules and regulation that needs to be mandatorily to be done by this table. So here I have a primary key constraint. That means we are going to make one or more column as a primary key. So it must be unique in nature and it should not be not null. That is what the constraint here. Then how we are going to create this student table now? So can you tell me now? So create and table. What is the table name here? I am taking a table name as a student, right? So I will open a parenthesis. What is the first column that I have here? That is student ID. So what I wanted to have a data type, whether I wanted to have only numbers or whether I wanted to have both characters and numbers, I will go with varchar. Varchar of 20. Then I will put comma. Then what is the second column I have? I have name and I will take varchar of 30. That means up to 30 characters, they can give a value for name. And I have a date of birth and I have a data type called date. I will take that. So I will close the parenthesis. Then I will give the semicolon. That indicates what? That indicates the termination of a table declaration. This is how we are going to create a student table. It has 3 columns that include student ID, name, and also it has date of birth. So we have to specify its data type. Then at last I have to close the parenthesis with semicolon. So here you can see one of the example here. This is what I have told, create table student, and I have a student ID. For that I am taking a character data type, and it's I'm making that student ID as a primary key, and we have a student name and its data type is char, and it should not be not null. That means it should not be null. Okay, we have to give some value. This is one of the constraint, not null constraint. And also we have a f name, that is father name, then char of 20, then comma, age, that needs to be in number, and we have to check whether their age is lesser than 20 or not. So if not, then there must be some constraint. And then we are taking a class char of 5, that should not be null. So that it is not null, then address char of 50. Okay, or else you can also take the memo data type. And also we are going to give the semicolon at last. So why we are going to use this semicolon? That indicates the termination of that particular statement. This is how we are going to use a create table command. So next we'll see about the alter statement. So now we all understand, I have created a table, right? So I have a 3 columns in that. I have student ID and I have a student name and I have a date of birth of a student. But I have forgotten to take the address. Then I have to go with a alter. So you have to understand the difference between alter and update. If I wanted to change the scheme of a table, or if I wanted to change the structure of a table, then I have to go with a alter. If I wanted to modify the content of a table, then I have to go with a update. That is the difference between alter and update. For example, I have 3 columns in my table called student, student ID, student name and date of birth. If I wanted to add a address, so then I have to go with alter instead of update. So for that purpose, we are going to have this alter command so that the table can be modified or changed by using alter command. If I wanted to modify or if I wanted to change the scheme of a table, then I have to go with this alter command. Then how we are going to do that alter command? We'll see now. Here we have a keyword called alter table and I have to give a table name. So if I am not taking a table name, how that can understand which table I wanted to alter? So that you have to mention its table name, alter table name, and you have to specify its column name. Then you have to give a data type with its size. For example, if I am taking a varchar, I am going to take its size. So that means what? You are adding new content. So you are modifying a existing scheme of a table. For that purpose, we will be using this alter statement. So you can see here, alter table employee modify. Remember here, we are going to use a keyword called modify in order to alter the scheme of a table. So we are taking salary and its data type is number of size 15, 2. Okay, this is how we are going to use the alter statement in a table. For example, I have a student table that comprises of student ID, then it has a student name and date of birth. So now I wanted to take one more column called address. How we are going to do that then? Alter table student, alter table student, modify. I am going to take address and I will take care of 50. So this is how, or else we can also use a keyword called set. So we can use set and modify with respect to this alter statement. We'll see the next command, that is regarding drop. So as I told you earlier, there is a difference between drop and delete. Okay, understand, if I wanted to delete the content of a table, then I have to go with a delete. For example, you consider I have a student table. Consider this example itself. So I have what? A student ID like 1, 2, name, and I will take A, B, C, D and their date of birth 18 December and 17 Jan. So their address Mysuru, Bengaluru. Okay, you just imagine this is what the content. So when I wanted to use a drop, when I wanted to use a delete, if I wanted to delete this content of a record, then I have to use a delete. If I wanted to delete this from the database management system or from the database, then I have to use a drop command. So drop commands are used in order to delete the overall scheme of a table from the database. Or if I wanted to delete the records or a content of a table, then I have to go with a delete statement. So that drop table statement is used to remove a table definition and all the data indexes, triggers, its constraints and permissions specification for that table. If I wanted to delete all the content or if I wanted to delete all the constraints, triggers and its indexes, if I wanted to remove the table overall from the database management system, then we have to use this drop statement. How we are going to do this then? Drop table and I have to give a table name at last semicolon. For example, drop table then student. So if I search the student table in a database, that is not at all exist in the database because we are using a drop command. So this is how drop command or statements will going to work. We'll see the next command that is related to insert. So now we created a table. If I created a table, then we have to insert some values to the table. For that purpose, we are going to use this insert command. How we are going to insert then? So the tuples are added to the relation using insert command. So tuples are nothing but records, right? That is rows. So we have to give a data and values to the existing table. That can be done with the help of this insert command. So we'll see the syntax now. Insert into. So what we wanted to insert, where we wanted to insert here. So we wanted to insert the tuple value to the table. So that insert into, we have to specify the name of a table. then I have to take a list of a columns. After that, we have to use a keyword called values. For example, consider I have a student table. Student is a table and I have 3 columns in that. Student ID, name and date of birth. I wanted to give the value for a first tuple or a first row. How I am going to do that then? Insert into student and I will take student ID, comma, student name, comma, date of birth. Then I have to use a keyword called values. Then value 1. So this value 1 should match with my column 1 and this value 2 should match with my column 2. So in the same way, up to value n we are going to take. Then close the parenthesis, at last semicolon. So here you can see that enter a new record in a student table. Already we got to know what we have in a student table. Consider here, insert into student. What is the table name here? Student. Let me write the content of this table. Consider I have a student table, right? What is the name of a table here? Student. Insert into student. What we have? We have a student ID. Consider that as a SID and also we have a student name. Then we have a next column called father name and we have one more column called age. Then we have class and also we have a address, right? So these are the columns of my student table. So what I wanted to insert now? I wanted to insert one tuple. So insert into student SID, S name, father name, age, class, addresses. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have a 6 columns. That means what? We must have a 6 values for this 6 columns. It should not be greater than that. It should not be lesser than that values. So what are the values I am taking? 101. So where I wanted to insert this 101 with respect to first column, I have to take this value for first column. Let me consider that as a 101 as a student ID. Next, what we have? Mohan. So already we have defined regarding this S name. So while creating also, we have mentioned its data type, that is of varchar of 50. So that it must be in a single quote. So that we have to take Mohan as a name of a student here. Then what is the next? That is father name, that is Pawan. Then we have a age. So what is the age here? 15. So you have to give the comma. That means in order to differentiate the value from one value to another value. Age is 15 and they are in the class 8. And what is the address? That is Jaipur. So this is how we are going to insert one tuple to the table called student. If I wanted to insert some more tuples or records to the table, we have to follow these steps again and again up to how many numbers of rows or records that you wanted to include. This is how we are going to use the insert statement. We'll see the next command, that is regarding select command. So why we are going to use this select command? We know that we have a table and I have inserted some more tuples into the existing table. So now I wanted to fetch some specific information out of that table. For example, you can consider student table again. I have student ID, I have student name, their father name and their age, address. So these are my columns in the student table. For example, if I wanted to have only name of all the student name in my student table, I can get that specific information in a table. So for that purpose, we are going to use this select command. So that select command is a query that is given to produce a certain specified information from a database table. If I wanted to fetch a specified information or a specific information from a table, then we have to go with this select command. What is the syntax for the select command then? Select column 1 name. That means we have to specify which column you wanted to fetch. So I can have any number of columns. For example, if my table consists of 100 columns, then I can fetch any number of columns within 100. So that select column name, column 2 name up to I can have any number of column, and we have to use a keyword called from. So that means from which table I wanted to take a particular column. Then we have to specify a table name. At last, don't forget to give the semicolon. So if I wanted to write a query, consider I have a student table. Consider student is the name of a table and I have a student ID and I have a name and I have a place or address you consider. Okay, and consider the student ID as 1, and consider this name as Ramu, and consider the address as Mysore. Let me take one more tuple called student ID 2 and consider this as a Raju. Then consider this as Bangalore. Okay, so these are the two tuples or a records in my student table. So now I just wanted to have a student ID from this student table. How I'm going to write that? Select which column I wanted to get. I wanted to get student ID. From where I wanted to get? From which table? That is student table. So at last I have to give a semicolon. Then what will be the resultant for this? So I am going to get 1 and 2. So these are the student ID column values. And this is how this select statement will going to work. So here you can see one more example. So in order to get a display the information like name and salary of the employee in the EMP table. Consider I have a EMP table. So if I wanted to fetch the content of a e-name and salary from my employee table, this is how we are going to write a command. Select e-name, comma, then sal from EMP. This is the table name. At last, semicolon. What if I wanted to have all these columns together? What if I wanted to see all the student ID, name, address? So at that time, you just need to use a select star. So this star indicates that we are fetching all the content from a table. Select star from student. At that time, all the column will going to be displayed on a screen as a resultant. This is how select statement will work. So now we'll see about the where clause. So now if I wanted to have all the column, then I can go with directly, I can mention the column name, or else if I wanted to have all the content of all the columns, then I can simply take this select star from student. What if I wanted to have a particular record? What if I wanted to, for example, I wanted to fetch only this row, or I wanted to fetch only this record. At that time, how can I do that? For that purpose, we are going to have this where clause, that is in order to give the condition. So, we'll see how this where clause will going to work. So, here selecting specific rows. So, if I wanted to select a specific row, then this where clause will going to be used. So, it will be used to specify a condition while fetching the data from single table or joining within multiple table. For example, I wanted to select, so you consider I have a student table here. I wanted to select a name of a student whose ID or a student ID is 1. So how can I do that? If I wanted to fetch a particular row, as I told, if I wanted to fetch a particular tuple or a row, I have to go with a where clause. So if I wanted to have a column, then I have to go with a select. So we'll see how we are going to use this where clause then. Select column 1, column 2 up to column n from table name, and we have to use a keyword called where, and I have to take a condition. So let me write the condition in order to fetch the content of this first row. How I am going to do that then? Select name. Name is a column here. Okay. From where I wanted to get? From a student table. Then I have to specify a keyword called where. What is the condition I wanted to take? Where SID is equal to 1. So what will be the resultant for this? Then the resultant will be Ramu, because we are fetching the content of this column called name from the student table where student ID is 1. So in order to get a particular value, or in order to get a specified row of a table, then we have to go with this where clause. We'll see the next command that is related to AND operator. Already we have discussed regarding the AND and OR operator. If I wanted to satisfy more than one condition in my table, in order to fetch a content, we have to go with this AND command or a AND operator. Or if I wanted to fetch the data and information based on the condition, like whether either this condition is true or either that condition is true, at the time we have to go with this OR. OR is like what? Selection of a based on the multiple commands. If anyone gets satisfied, we can fetch the data. But if I wanted to have this AND operator, or if I wanted to have this AND command, then all the condition needs to be satisfied. So here AND operators allows the existence of a multiple condition in an SQL statement in a where clause. Then how we are going to use this AND operator? We'll see now. Select column 1, column 2 up to column n from table name, where we have to give a condition and So I wanted to take one more condition. I can have any number of condition. At last, we are going to use a semicolon. That means how I am going to do that? Consider select name from student. Select name from student where I am taking a condition where student ID is equal to 1. Student ID is equal to 1 and I am taking and address is equal to Mysuru. So then what will be the name it will going to display as a result? You can see here. So we have a student ID, name and address in a student table. What I am fetching? I am fetching a name where student ID is needs to be equal to 1 and the address needs to be equals to Mysuru. Then only it will going to returns a value called Ramu. So that means I have to get an information that needs to be satisfied more than one condition. So in the place of and, if I am going to use or, at that time either any one of the condition gets satisfied, then I can get the resultant as Ramu. So for example, even if the student ID is 2 or 3, so if their ID is 2 and their address is Mysuru, then it will going to fetch the value from that particular name column. This is how this AND operator and OR operator will going to work. So instead of AND, we will be using OR condition. So if any one of the condition gets satisfied, then this column will going to be displayed on a screen as a resultant. So next we'll see about the update. Already I told you regarding alter and update. If I wanted to change the scheme of a table, then alter. If I wanted to change the content of a tuple, then update. So how you are going to use this update, we'll see now. So this update command is used to do some changes in the values in the existing rows. Already I have a student ID as 1 and 2, but I wanted to take that as a 10 and 20. For that purpose, we have to use this update command. So that the update command specifies the rows to be changed using the where clause. So here also we are going to use a where. So where is like a condition. So based on the condition, if the condition got satisfied, then we are going to use this update command and new data using a set keyword. So we are going to use this set keyword in order to make a changes or updation to the existing content or a content of a row of a table. So how I am going to do then? Update, I have to specify table name. To which table I wanted to do the updation. Update table name and which keyword we have to use? Set. Column 1 is equal to value 1, comma. Then column 2 is equal to value 2. In the same way, I can have any number of columns where I have to specify condition. We'll see one example. Update, use a keyword called update and I will take a student name. I wanted to take a student table. Then what is the next one? We have to use a keyword called set. Update, student, set, and then I'm going to use name is equal to Suma, then where student ID is equal to 1. So what it indicates, dear students, so I am updating. So as you all know that what was the previous value of the student ID and their name, their address, that you all know, right? So student ID I have 1 and I have 2. Here it is Ramu and here it was Raju, then it is Bangalore, then it is Mysuru. So now what is the updation I am making? So update, I wanted to update the student table and I am setting the value. What is that? Name is equal to Suma. So initially what it was? It was Ramu. How can I get to know? Because where student ID is 1. So if I see this table called student, I can get to know we have 2 rows or 2 tuples where student ID is 1 and student ID is 2. So to which row I am making a changes? That is for a particular row called student ID is 1. So instead of having this Ramu, I am making a alteration. That means I am doing the updation with respect to the name of a student table by using a set keyword where I am specifying its condition as student ID is 1. So after this, what will be the value of this name called student ID 1? Then how it will going to be modified or updated? Student, and then we have a student ID again, then name, then address, right? So initially it was 1 Ramu Mysuru. Now what it will become? It will become Suma, then Mysuru. And second row will be as it is. I hope you understood regarding this update statement. So we'll see one more example with respect to employee here. So that update the salary of an employee to 5,000 whose employee code is 1011. So what they are wanted to make a updation here, they wanted to set a salary as 5,000 rupees where the employee ID or their code is 1011. How we are going to do that then? Update EMP. What is this EMP? It is a table name, right? So EMP set sal is equal to 5,000. We are setting the salary as 5,000 where employee number or employee code is 1011. So with respect to this employee number called 1011, the salary will going to be updated to the value called 5,000. Whatever could be the previous value. For example, you can consider it was 50,000. Now they are going to make a changes or they are doing the updation with respect to this salary column of a table called employee by making use of a keyword called set where the condition is employee number is 1011. This is regarding update statement. We'll see about the delete. Already I have discussed regarding the delete and drop, right? If I wanted to delete the content of a row or a tuple, then I have to go with a delete. If I wanted to delete a overall schema from my database, then I have to use a drop. So here the delete command will going to remove the tuple from the table. So it will just remove the content of that table, but it is not removing that overall schema from a database. So that is regarding delete. So this command remove the entire row from the table and not the individual field. So we are removing the entire row. So we are removing the entire tuple. We are not working with the columns. So remember that. So no file argument is needed. For example, consider student table again, and I have 3 columns, student ID and name, and we have a address 1. So I have updated, it becomes Suma now, Sumaiso. Then we have a second row, Raju, with respect to address that is Bangalore, right? So now what if I wanted to delete this entire row called second student ID? So for that we are going to use this delete. How I am going to do that? Delete from table name where condition at last semicolon. That means I have to delete an entire row from a particular table. So that we have to specify a table name and I have to specify the condition. So how I am going to do that? I told you that I wanted to delete this entire row. How can I do that? We'll see now. Delete from which table? From which table I wanted to delete? I wanted to delete the content of student table where SID is equal to 2. So what it will going to do then? So it will going to delete this entire row. So we have only this student table with respect to only one row, that is student ID, name and address. So this will be like 1 Suma and then Mysore. This is how the table of student will going to look like after this delete command. This is how this delete will going to work. We'll see the example here. Delete all the records of employee whose salary is lesser than 3,000. So consider we have an employee table called EMP and I wanted to delete all the rows where their salary is lesser than 3,000. How we are going to write the command for that? Delete from EMP. EMP is a table name where salary is lesser than 3,000. So how we are going to write a command for that? Delete from employee. So EMP is a table name here where salary is lesser than 3,000. So all the rows, those whose salary is lesser than 3,000, all the records or all the tuples will going to be deleted from this employee table. What if I wanted to delete all the rows of a table? For example, I have a student table. I have 2 rows, 1 and 2. I don't want both row 1 and row 2. That is, I don't want a student ID 1 as well as the student ID 2. Then how I am going to do that? That is how delete from table name. So I just wanted to specify a table name and I have to use a from. So I have to use delete keyword. So that means how I am going to do that then? Delete from student. So all the row value will going to be deleted or removed from the table. This is how delete will going to work. We'll see the next one, that is regarding order by. So as the name indicates, if I wanted to display any of the information which is based on some order, it can be either ascending order or descending order. By default, it will be ascending order. If I wanted to have any of the information to be displayed as of the descending order, we have to use the keyword called DESC. So here you can see that the resulting column can be sorted in ascending and descending order by making use of this order by clause. So we are going to use this order by clause in order to represent any of the resultant column either in the ascending or in the descending order. And by default, ascending order is the default for this order clause. Then select column list from table name where I have to specify some condition order by. So we have to use a keyword called order by and it will going to be displayed like column 1, column 2 up to column 1. So if I am not specifying its order, by default it will be ascending, or if I wanted to get it in a descending order, then it will be DESC. So you can see that consider I have a student table, student ID, name and address. Okay, so now select column list. Let me consider select student ID from which table I wanted to take? I wanted to take it from student table where I have to give a condition. Let me consider where student ID is greater than 1, then order by I will take name column. So how it will going to be displayed? So it will going to sort out this name where the student ID is greater than 1. So we don't have any student ID which is lesser than 1 here. All the student ID is greater than 1. We have 2, 3 as well as 4. But we are using that with the order by name. So how it will going to be displayed then? So if you see the resultant table, how it will going to look like? So it will going to take a student ID. Right? It will going to display a student ID, that is what which is based on the name. So which name will come first? This Raju or Ramya. So Ramya will come first. What is the student ID? So it will going to display student ID as. So what I am fetching? I am fetching the student ID from a student table where student ID is greater than 1. So order by name. So based on the order of a name, we are fetching the student ID. So we have to take care about the name, right? So which names come first here? Like based on the ascending order. So I can go with this Raju. So R-A-J-U. So that will come first. So we have to take the student ID as 2. Then Ramya will come. Then 4. Okay. 2, 3, 4. This is how this order by class will going to work. So we are taking a student ID from a student table where condition we are giving student ID needs to be greater than 1, order by name. So that will going to be displayed on a screen as a resultant. So here you can see the example here. Display the list of employee in the descending order of employee, code and who is a manager. So we are taking all the columns here. That's why I am specifying star. Select star from EMP table where job is equal to manager, where their job value is equal to manager, order by E code. So here it will going to display all the column of a table called employee with respect to the people or employee whose job is manager based on their ID or a employee code. The value will going to be displayed on a screen. And also we see about the group by. So order by, group by. Already we have discussed regarding the order by. So in my next session, I will be discussing regarding this group by along with the built-in group by functions. We'll see the next statement, that is regarding distinct. So as the name indicates, distinct is what? That is, I wanted to fetch the unique value. So for that purpose, we are going with this distinct. Mainly it wanted to remove the redundancy. So it will remove the duplicate values. It will just going to have only unique values. So this distinct keyword is used to restrict the duplicate rows from the results of a select statement. If I have same rows or if I have same values more than one time, at that time if I wanted to avoid all those redundancy or if I wanted to avoid all those duplicacy, then I have to use this distinct statement. Select distincts column 1, column 2. I can have any number of column from table name where I have to give a condition. So that you can see here, select distinct name. For example, consider I have a student table. Okay, consider this student table. Student ID and name 1, 2, 3. Raju. Again I have a Raju here. Then Rani. Okay. So now select distinct name from student. So what will be the resultant after having this command? It will just going to specify Raju and Rani because we are taking only distinct value. So this Raju and Raju is duplicate. That means if I consider a whole row value, it will be different from one row to another row. But if I wanted to have a distinct name from this student name, then I can have this distinct keyword. So that select distinct name from student table. This is how this distinct table will going to work in order to remove the duplicate rows from the table. So next we have a null. So as we all know that null has a different meaning. So it can be missing value, it can be junk value, or it can be misplaced value, right? So here null value in a column can be searched for in a table using is null. So why we are going to use this is null or a null? So if I wanted to check any null value is present in my table, did I miss anything in order while entering the values? So in order to check the content which is null, then we are going to use this null keyword or a statement in the where clause. So that a field with a null value is a field with no values. So what does this null value indicates? The field with no values. So you can take the example here, again student table. So within that I have a student ID, I have a student name, and I have a address. Let me consider this as Suma, and I am intentionally leaving the value for this address and consider this as a Suni and Mysore. So what it indicates, this has no value. That means it is a null. If I wanted to check this value with respect to this is null statement or a command, we can do that. Select column name, any number of columns you can take from table name where column name is null. How I am going to write a command for this then? We'll see. I wanted to select the name of a student whose address is null. How I am going to do that then? Select which column I wanted to take. I wanted to take a name from student table, from student. Then here you can see that where which column? This is address column is null. So what will be the resultant for this? So what is the name of a student whose address value is null? It will going to returns the address, or it will going to returns the resultant as Suma. This is how this null value or is null statement will going to work. So here we have one example. We'll see about the not null. It is just the opposite of this null. So in the null, we are checking for the no values. So if I wanted to check all the values has been given, and if it is not null, then we are going to use this not null command. So that not null signifies that column should always accept an explicit value of a given data type. It should not be null. It must have some values. So it must accept some explicit values in a row or a tuple of a table. I hope you all understood my today's session. It's all about today's session. Let me meet you in the next session with a continuation of this chapter. Until that, keep learning, keep on growing. Thank you.